Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Laxer, and thank you for joining me today. It's been a while since we did our last The Left Chapter audio dispatch because we have been updating and upgrading the Left Chapter's website lately. I will link to it in the description on YouTube, but you can visit the new website with all the new and updated content at theleftchapter.com. As the capitalist coronavirus crisis has continued to unfold, it's becoming increasingly clear that we're asking some people to be sacrificed so that the economy as a whole can quote-unquote reopen. There's no question and there is no contradiction between noting that people are desperate to get back to work and to some kind of normalcy in their lives, and the fact that the push to reopen rapidly, to reopen the economy, to reopen business, to reopen stores, and to reopen, sort of day-to-day economic life, is also fraught with danger, and that the danger that this poses does not fall at all equally across the different social classes or along racial lines. It is obvious that working people and that people from marginalized and racialized communities are being hit very hard economically by the ongoing coronavirus crisis. I mean, when you have a situation where millions of people have been thrown out of work, you're seeing unbelievable photographs and videos in the United States of miles-long lineups of cars outside of food banks. You're obviously going to have incredible growing desperation. There's an indication that homelessness could rise by as much as 44% in the United States. The situation is only marginally better in Canada. This obviously is going to result in people wanting to see the economy reopen, wanting to get back to normal life, and wanting to, reestablish themselves in their jobs and with regular paychecks, etc. There's also the fact that, and as we talked about on the Left Chapter and in previous audio dispatches, there's the fact that the response, the policing of the coronavirus has been done in ways that are deeply hypocritical, and that also fall totally unevenly. So that, when in the beginning of the capitalist coronavirus crisis, and when you had the police doing sweeps of parks and, targeting specific neighborhoods more than others in New York, for example, it was very clear that this wasn't being done in an even-handed way. And, while these parks and neighborhoods were being overly policed, with absurd examples like the single mother who was standing by herself in a park in Aurora, Ontario, I believe it was, who was fined hundreds of dollars, even though she was nowhere near anyone, by some bylaw officer goon who'd sort of been lying in wait, just waiting to hand out a ticket to someone. And meanwhile, you contrast this with man camps still being open in places, or being reopened in places like Quebec or in British Columbia, or the fact that so many industries and factories in different places were deemed essential that it almost made a farce of the term essential. You have the Cargill factory in Alberta reopening despite having the largest single outbreak of the coronavirus anywhere in North America. It reopened very rapidly and over the strenuous objections of its union. But, that didn't matter. So, people felt that there was instinctively, if nothing else, that there was a tremendous level of hypocrisy to this, handing out tickets to homeless people in Hamilton, and one could go on and on. And then, of course, but contrast this with what happened in Toronto this past weekend, where you had the Trinity Bellwoods park fiasco with hundreds and hundreds of people showing up. Clearly it was not being policed in remotely the same way as it probably would have been if it had been in a different community. This was called out in the Star, for example, in an opinion piece about the mostly white COVIDiots at Trinity Bellwoods think the rules don't apply to them. They're right. So there's this kind of backlash, and that the backlash itself shows and reflects both the hypocrisy of how our society is going about reopening and attempting to reestablish quote unquote normal life, and how the burden of how this will happen and the policing of how this will happen will fall very differently on different communities. It is pretty clear that we're not out of the woods, despite the huge pushes to reopen. You're seeing record days of record numbers, day after day of record numbers of coronavirus cases in Ontario, and still there's no change to the plans Ontario has to reopen. You're seeing cover-ups, straight-up cover-ups. NBC News just today put out an article whose title is "I'm Looking for the Truth. States Face Criticism for COVID-19 Data Cover-Ups." These data cover-ups are not so as to exaggerate the coronavirus. It's very much the opposite. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, said the actual number of people who've died as a result of the pandemic is almost certainly higher than what's being counted. And there's clear, like Georgia officials, for example, had to apologize and correct what they claimed was a quote processing error that wrongly showed a downward trend in the number of daily infections in the state, when that was not the case at all. There are numerous other examples of this happening. The Trump administration has now made it so that the people who died of the coronavirus or as a result of the coronavirus in retirement homes will not have to be counted if they died prior to, I believe it was May 6th. So you have various things going on that actually are meant to suppress the data and make it seem less bad than it is. But even with these attempts at suppression, the data's staggeringly bad. As the New York Times pointed out, 100,000 deaths in the United States alone so far, and yet there's no sign that deaths are going down, and yet the push to reopen is full steam ahead. And this is not going to. I think it's incredibly important for leftists, progressives, for people who feel, who have solidarity with working people and with different communities out there. I think it's incredibly important for us to understand just how unequally this can and will fall on different communities. While the push to reopen is going ahead in Quebec, for example, Indigenous organizations in Montreal were calling for a delay in reopening the city. They feel it's moving too fast because it's hitting their community especially hard. You have in the United States the fact that a Dallas area call center worker, a black a woman, Danita Jones, said, we're not essential, we're expendable. In The Guardian, this was noted that African Americans in Texas, for example, are dying of COVID-19 at a rate more than 1/3 higher than their share of the population. And as it notes, across the country, the protesters who became the faces of the race to reopen have been mostly white. So you have this this situation where the sort of the CEO class, the billionaire class, people like Elon Musk, a Goldman Sachs CEO recently, and others are pushing full steam ahead to reopen. But it's workers and workers from racialized communities, and in the United States, especially the black community, who are going to pay the price for this. You know, it's not just in Texas. It's all across the United States. In Chicago, black people are 30% of the population, but 60% of COVID-19 deaths. You know, it's as the Guardian pointed out in this case. This is from another Guardian article. It highlights, you know, the systemic racism at the root of the problem. You can't talk about reopening. You can't talk about the burden of reopening. You can't talk about the reality of reopening. You can't talk about the impact of reopening if you're not going to acknowledge, and if you're not in any truthful way, if you're not going to acknowledge, and if you're not going to take into account, and if you're not going to attempt to understand that this reopening is going to fall in tremendously different ways. For the privileged folks who were partying in Trinity Bellwoods Park, it may fall one way. For various other communities, it's going to come down like a boot. You know, it's just a terrible and oppressive reality that the full steam ahead means barreling over millions of people from communities that are already marginalized, that already have long histories of oppression and racism, or that are working class people who cannot afford to stay home, who cannot afford to work from home, who and also who cannot afford to refuse to do the work that we now have made essential, but that may well kill them as we reopen more and more stores and attempt to pretend that this virus is not charging full steam ahead as we try to reopen the economy on their backs. Anyway, I hope that people take care out there. I hope everybody is well, and I hope that you do check out the new website, theleftchapter.com, and also that you should check out, if you get a chance, the Red Daily page on Facebook, which is our new left-wing newswire page that has been, we've opened up. It's partially myself is involved and several other people, so I hope you'll take a look at it. It's once again, it's Red Daily, and you can find that on Facebook. We'll also put a link to it in the YouTube description. Thanks very much.